Everyone, welcome. Midweek Live, middle of the week, middle of the day. I am with Ashley Goldsmith today. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing pretty swell. It is cold outside.
It is cold.
You
didn't warn me.
I was not ready for that. We walked from the office to here and went, oh, we should have put our jackets back on. California problems, we know. Anyway, we are kind of been in a series for the last couple weeks on Sunday, really talking about social media, really talking about like the responsibility we have there and really the spiritual impact it can make, right? Like when we make good decisions on social media. And so over the last couple weeks, I've had some ladies join me for midweek because these ladies have I really feel like they've done such a great job of really, I think, handling the responsibility of social media well and allowing us to see both vulnerability and encouragement and community taking place there. And you are one of them, right? Got a chance to talk to Linda. I got a chance to talk with Sally last week and now Ashley. And you're actually one I'm really, really excited about because there's some unique experiences in that. You graduated from Fresno State with a business degree, yes?
A degree in media communications and then minored in business.
Oh, my goodness. Media communications, which is exactly my point.
Crazy.
You actually helped to facilitate and use and post and stuff, manage social media for Fresno State. I know that was like several different people. You were talking about that in the past. But I think it's important that we talk to people like you. You're using social media. You've had to use it for work. You've had to do it in school, right? You do it personally as well. You just started your own business, Blue Chair Communications, right?
Thanks for this free marketing.
Yeah. So you're on some adventures right now, and you're using a lot of the experience that you've had. And I just wanted to sit with you and just hear from you, hear some of the things you've experienced. I want to keep bringing people encouragement. Yeah. When we talk about the difficulties of social media, I feel like everybody wants to make the same thing. And it's like, just forget it. I'm just going to shut all my accounts down. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Want to walk away. Like, I just want to see people in person. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. But I kind of feel like we have a great responsibility to what's happening in this realm. I think the Lord wants us to use it for like a good way to spread his love to the world, because we can reach corners of the world online that I think I said it last week, nobody has the money to go and fly to all these places, and yet we have the ability to reach so many countries and realms in this world, and why not use that to spread the good news and the gospel and community. And, there's just I don't want people to walk away because I think we'd be missing out. Maybe there's some that need to walk away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Pray about it. But let's talk. Your first experiences with social media. Do you remember if it was like a good experience or a bad experience?
First experiences. I think I got a Facebook account.
Yeah,
when I
probably.
was like 13.
That makes sense. I feel like that's the entry drug.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
But back then it was like I just posted highly edited black and white photos of me and my dog, and like the cringiest photos, and then wish people happy birthday.
Yes.
And then I got an Instagram, I think when I was about 15.
Okay.
I remember going to a church camp, and I just wanted to stay connected to my friends after the camp, and so I got it. And Instagram then was so casual and fun. So overall, I think my initial interactions with social media were really positive and casual and low pressure.
And this is what's funny. When I asked you that question and I sent it, I had a feeling you were going to say positive.
Really?
Because I feel like everybody walks into it experiencing something positive off the top. In other words, you're sharing stuff about your life or whatever, and you maybe hear from people that you haven't seen in a while, or I love how you said you did camp and you wanted to stay connected with those people, and that kind of is a really cool part of what we get to do online. I went to a funeral yesterday. That sounds really sad, and I apologize for making a downer here, but what I actually really loved in attending that was when the wife came up to share some thoughts, she said, social media can be really a bit of a bummer, but this whole experience was so amazing. When I shared what had happened, I got a chance to hear from so many people the impact that my husband made on their life. And the stories, and there's hundreds of them, just keep coming in. And she basically just said to the room, like, please keep sharing those, like, with me. They're so helpful to hear. They're healing my heart. They're healing our hearts as the family moves through this. And I thought, yeah, that's it, guys. This is where those are such vital and I think important ways for us to love on people. Do you have a platform preference, Ashley? There's a lot of platforms out there. Yeah. Okay.
Instagram.
Yeah. That's the one you choose to spend most of your time on there.
It's the one I definitely spend the most time on, and probably the one I feel most comfortable with.
Okay.
So I think that's why it's my favorite.
Okay. All right. Do you have like safety measures that you put in place when it comes to social media for you personally?
Such a good question. I tend to be somebody who is very trusting and hopes for the best.
Yeah.
So I think that I probably should have more personally, like on my personal account, just being more thoughtful from a safety perspective.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always need to show where you are when you're traveling or things like that. But I just tend to like, well, God's with me, we'll be fine. But as far as a more emotional perspective, I think I've learned from making mistakes or seeing experiences of others to not share things that I don't want the whole world to know, because I'm a pretty open person, even in just like a very real honest way. Like, you don't need to share when you go on one date with person that you're in a relationship.
Maybe not.
Just being wise and thoughtful. So I think I have some boundaries in place for myself from more of an emotional safety perspective.
That makes sense.
Because of my personality.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you have a business.
Yes.
And you've also managed other businesses.
Yes.
Are there safety protocols you think you put in place for those businesses as well, or is it completely kind of different when it comes to that?
No, I think there are definitely safety protocols. Just the very basics of if you have more people on your team, considering who you give access to the accounts, and also thinking about being a good leader when it comes to social media in a business sense. Again, if you have other people on your team, maybe interns or people posting, it's up to you to ensure that the content that they're sharing is reflective of the client, of the business, whether that's an organization, a nonprofit, a church, and you're the one who's the social media manager.
Right.
And there are other people who are involved in sharing content.
Yeah.
Put up, whether that's like, what are the social media rules, developing a document, leading well by example, and helping. I think the biggest thing is helping those on the team to understand the purpose behind social media and why you're sharing what you're sharing. So those are just, I tend to lean more on the emotional side of things, but just basic safety precautions would be, guarding.
Well, and I think you nailed it right now with what you said, the emotional side, the investment. I think that's one of the biggest draws and pushes on social media. And Sally was just saying, when she was here last week, that business will tell you, like, that's exactly it, that getting to know people and making the business about the person, because people want to invest in somebody.
Yes.
Not necessarily the global entity of a business. And so it does mean you have to put yourself out there, right? And that is, for a lot of people, I feel like you're one of so many that would say the same thing. That's hard. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because most people don't want to do that. Most people don't want to be like front and center. Even for me and all those different things that I do, I'm not a huge fan of it myself. I mean, I feel comfortable doing it, but I don't feel like I have to be the one to do, you know what I mean? Like it's
vulnerable.
It's vulnerable. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think I worry about, and I don't know, you can tell me if you feel the same way. I think I worry about like people thinking that I think a lot about myself, or that I think,
yes. Yes.
Right? I think I struggle with like that people might get the wrong idea about who like I am.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have been having conversations with clients. So if you're a small business owner or wherever you work, even if you are just thinking about your personal accounts. And you're like, I don't want to post because it seems arrogant or selfish. And Jesus calls us to die to ourselves.
Be humble.
Be humble. And I think, first of all, that's great processing if that's a thought that comes through your mind at all. And I think that's something all of us as followers of Jesus should ask ourselves is what's our motive behind posting this photo, being in this video, opening up this account. But going back to business owners, something I've been talking to clients about is people, and the data shows this, people are craving human connection and they're more likely to engage with brands that have that personal connection. And think about it just like if you had a brick and mortar store and you never showed your face, people want to walk in and they want to meet you and they're excited to hear your story and you're opening up the doors to relationship. And that's, I think, more as time goes on, it's going to require you to put your face out there, which is tough.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a pride-centered thing.
Yeah. It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Because you really do put yourself out there to be judged, but also to just fear that people might get the wrong idea about who you really are. And so it's funny, as we're talking, that was the thought that came to mind. I've never been able to share that with many people, but it is like always in the back of my mind because I feel like, gosh, I do every pre-service and I do all the midweeks and stuff. And it's because I really love talking with people. It's because I really love getting to know people. And because I also think it's like so important that we truly see the life of the church like in real time, that it's not perfect, that it's not brushed up and a video that's been, pre-done and all of those things. It's like real life movement. And I feel like that's important for people to see, and that's the life of the church. That's the people. That's the church, right? So tell me, how many times have you wanted to walk away from social media? Too many to count, right?
So many.
Yeah.
So many. And then in 2019, I completely deleted my Instagram account. So it's my favorite platform, the one that I use all the time. And I was so done. And I kept like deleting the app. And then somehow it would end up back on my phone. Somehow, I don't know.
I don't know who.
It was just there.
Reinstalled that.
And I found myself using it to numb out. I found that I just felt bad. I didn't like how I felt when I was on the app, so I completely deleted my account for almost a year. And I learned a lot through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I say, there's been several times, has it been because of what has been the main reason? Just, you said numbing out. So is it like this idleness about it? Like you're just kind of scrolling through and wasting time. We were just talking about that this last weekend, right?
Yeah.
Colin talked a lot about that, like the whole, like, who are you serving, right? What are you watching?
Yes. I think it was that, the using it to numb out, a time waster. But also I just found that my motives for posting were consistently not what I wanted them to be. I found that I just didn't feel healthy overall on a if there was a scale, it was more on the unhealthy side.
Yeah. And so for you, it was, I need to just take a break from this. I need to take a fast from this. I need to walk away from this and really check my heart on that. It wasn't because of bad experiences as far as like engagement or interaction. I know sometimes that can really take a toll on people if, there's a lot of, a couple of weeks ago, Shane, one of them, talked about, trolling. Like people go on there and they really do knock you down, and processing sometimes that stuff is difficult. Have you ever had those experiences?
I think it has been more internal for me.
Yeah.
I've been really blessed to not have experienced like what those who are in maybe more of a public facing role do as far as the hate comments or drama and things like that. So it definitely was more of for my own mental health and spiritually, I think I need to step away.
Yeah.
But it was funny because what I learned during that time is this is, I think Shane talked about this, and there's a book called Counterfeit Gods that summarizes this beautifully. And it was one of the most practical experiences in my life where I learned this, is that if you try to get rid of an idol in your life just purely out of willpower, that's not going to end well. It has to, otherwise it's just going to be filled with another idol. And what was funny is I deleted Instagram during one of the busiest semesters, and I was really stressed and working, and I wasn't filling that time with real community. And so I just found other things to numb out, like watching YouTube or TV.
You chose something else.
And so if an idol is not replaced with Jesus and with the things that he says are going to bring life, then you're just going to find something else to fill it. And that's why I love what you said about we don't want to encourage everybody to just leave social media, because social media in and of itself is likely not the problem.
Right. That's a good point to make too. And I think that's why it's so important that we talk about things like praying through your reasoning, right? So like, had you taken time maybe to pause and like pray about why is it that you felt like you needed to shut it down? The Lord may have guided you, not necessarily to not shut it down, but maybe, hey, when you go, like the same way fasting works, right?
Yes.
We fast, and the idea behind fasting is that if we're using it for hunger or for food, the idea is that when you would eat, instead you're going to read the Word. Instead, you're going to pray. Instead, you're going to spend time with the Lord. And so maybe it is removing Instagram or whatever the social media platform is for a time, but in place of it, what are you adding, right? If you're only worried about the taking away, you might not actually be hitting the actual issue. And I think that's really important. I'm glad you said that. Have there been people that bring you inspiration or encouragement on social media? Are there things that have like brought you joy?
Well, this lady Kim, really though, I do love following people like Morgan Harper Nichols, a poet and an artist, and it's wonderful to have your feed full of things that are positive and encouraging. So I love following her. Leadership people like Craig Groeschel.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And then what I enjoy is that on my business account, or in the past I had a blog. On that account, I would just curate the people I was following to just be like inspirational. So it was just all like faith women. Or on my business account, it's positive marketing professionals or other business owners. So I love following thought leaders and creative people.
Yeah. You know, and Sally and I kind of dabbled a little bit in that conversation too, of like using different platforms in different ways. Like Facebook might be the great place for the community, and totally like you're probably open to like all friends everywhere in every walk of life that you've ever had, you know, like I have a group of like that. My first job was with In-N-Out years ago. And so there's like a private group of us In-N-Out people, like all these years later that we're still like in a group with, and we kind of get updates from people and stuff. That's kind of cool. So having these different platforms do different things or fuel you in different ways. So Janessa Waite is one of the people that I follow on Instagram. And what I love is she is, again, a creative. And like you're talking about, like as you're scrolling through, it's like reminders of scripture, and she's placing them in places, or, you know, writing with a unique handwriting or painting about it or whatever. And it's just, it's encouragement as you kind of go through, and, you know, different avenues bring your soul different responses, you know, and I love when we get those like responses of like scripture, like to be reminded of like truth in the middle of your day. I think that's like a really great blessing that we have, you know, to accidentally, but if you're intentional about who in fact you're following and what you're looking at, then you'll see that more often. How has social media impacted you in like a positive way, do you think, or would you say?
Definitely. I think it's given me access to people like we just discussed, leaders and creators who I never would have been able to connect with in that way. And though I don't have a personal relationship with them, I get to learn from them. I get to read articles and see photos that help me personally and professionally. So I'd say that's one thing. When I turned 18, I wanted to start a blog, and I created an Instagram account for it. And honestly, that was one of my most positive social media experiences. There were friends who I hadn't seen for years, or people I knew from speech and debate at other parts of the country who would follow along. And I remember having a friend who I met early in college who's an atheist, and the content I was sharing wasn't necessarily like, here are all the reasons why you should be a Christian, but it was more about my life and being a young adult. And he followed along and he would comment. And so that was such a positive experience, because it really was a little community, like a very little community that was so encouraging and purposeful. So that honestly, that really shaped what I wanted to do as a career, and how I see, even though I have been sobered to the negative sides of social media too, I believe with every part of me that social media can be used for so much good because of those experiences.
Yeah. I'm glad you said those things, because I mean, I would just kick myself if I didn't say it. Every Sunday, it's just amazing to see the people that are being impacted by services on Sunday. And, for anyone who feels that, watching service is just not, it's not church, I would just challenge that a little bit. We never know why people can't be there physically. There's a variety of things. And I've heard so many situations where if you knew their story, you would have a deep heart for the reasons why they can't be there. And I think because we look at ourselves and we look at ourselves at able-bodied people who are healthy, that we imagine everybody else in the world is the same thing. But what online and social reminds us of is that that's not the case for every single person, and allowing them access to the church in a real way, where they get to interact and they get to ask for prayer and they get to receive encouragement and they get to worship right alongside us and they get to hear the message right alongside us. It's like, it's a beautiful thing. I see it, and I'm thinking about it right now and I'm getting teary-eyed. I think it's just really cool the way that God is working in the church at this time. And so I think it's beautiful. So I would just challenge you to just pause and realize that not everybody is us, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity and access to the Lord and his goodness. And that's reflected, I think, really well on our Sundays. And so I'm really grateful for that. Sorry, emotional moment there. Woo! Okay, here we go. How do you approach, you mentioned a moment, you said you've been sobered to the negatives. How have you approached negative stuff on social media?
So this is something I've put a lot of thought into. One semester in school, I kind of dedicated all my projects to this topic, to the negative and positive impacts of social media on mental health. And I read research on it, and I came to the conclusion that social media is amoral. Like money, it's not good or evil. But then I studied more about marketing and watched the documentary The Social Dilemma.
Oh, we talked about this.
Yes.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I want to encourage you to watch it.
Yes, it's on Netflix.
It's really good. Again, it's not a point to just steer away from social media. It's just being responsible with it, understanding how it works.
Yes. And so just to touch on that briefly, initially my opinion was, okay, social media is neither good nor evil. I now believe and I'm not against marketing, that's what I do, but understanding how digital marketing works is, you as the user of social media are the commodity. The advertisers are those who own the social media platforms are trying to get you to spend as much time on them as possible. They are not designing these platforms or the algorithms for your well-being.
Right.
On top of that, I think it's important to know that the narrative that you might be seeing in news articles, especially on Facebook, is also being curated to you based on the things you click on or what you see. And so it's extremely important.
And even down to the intricacies of how long you've stayed. Like if you haven't scrolled, you haven't moved.
It tracks how long you're looking at each post. And I think as Christians, I've been impacted in my personal relationships by this. You may be so confused why your friend has a totally different understanding on this social issue or this cultural issue, but it likely could be that the news articles, the social media posts they're seeing are all one-sided, because that's what social media is feeding you based on your account and what you engage with. So I say all that to say is I now believe that just like with a lot of things in life, that if you are not proactive, if you just let things happen to you, if you just, it doesn't matter if you don't post anything, if you scroll through social media every day with zero intentionality, I believe that social media will have a negative impact on you. So in order to combat that, it's just like with anything. Let's say, I think the same goes with dating, with your spiritual life, with taking care of your car.
Yeah.
You can't just drive it and never get gas and never change the oil.
Right. There's intentionality behind caring for it, right?
Yes. And I think Christine Kane said this, like your spiritual life in general, if just left on autopilot, is going to end up degenerating and decaying. So the same goes with social media, is just really put simply, it's intentionality. It's, for me, I so don't do this perfectly, so I hesitate to even share my, but I think it's going to be a constant struggle, but it's also going to be around, and my kids are going to have to navigate it. So I want to learn how to have boundaries and intentionality, and that is thinking about who you're following. It's setting limits on how much time you're spending on each platform. It's trying to trick the algorithm. If you're an avid Facebook user, think about following pages that have different perspectives on certain issues, and thinking about the sources you're looking at.
And you can also unfollow and or hide certain things. It's okay to like hit the little X in the corner saying that you don't I don't want to see any more of this. On Instagram, there's the little dots on the top right that you can hit, and you can basically say, I want to see less of this. I don't want to, it's not interesting to me, or it's not, that's what you're talking about, being like intentional. If you see something that maybe doesn't feel right, or you're not crazy about seeing, like you have more control over that than you think you have. Just scrolling past it does not make it go away. It'll actually keep fueling it if you don't show actions against it. Which I think are pretty important. It might be that people just don't know that. And so it's okay to do that. On Instagram, you can actually still follow somebody, but just mute them, hide them. And it doesn't mean that you're not friends with them anymore. It just means you won't see some of the things. Maybe you have a family member that you love and you absolutely care for and don't want them to like not be a friend of yours, but maybe you don't want to see them in your feed because maybe some of the things they're sharing are unhealthy, or they're partying and you're trying to get over alcohol. Well, who knows? Just steer it a little bit more. Yes. It's okay to do that.
I'm so glad you said that, Kim. I think that can be one of the most simplest things you could do right now, is go through the people you're following and think about how what they're sharing makes you feel. And it's not selfish. It's not that you're weak and you can't, I just can't handle it.
Right.
I should be stronger. No, it's called being intentional about the things that you're giving your attention to.
Yeah, which has really been covered well over the last couple of weeks. I just want to keep encouraging. If you have not heard any of these messages we've been in, go and listen. They've got some great stuff there. These guys have done their homework, and they're speaking some truth. And so what do you think it indicates that social media is used by so many millions of people around the world?
I think it shows that we are communal creatures, and we love connecting. We crave novelty and new information. And I think it also shows that in some form or another, social media is going to be around. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I think it speaks volumes to the fact that, I think Sally was even saying, when I've gone on missions trips before, and some of those missions trips, people in third world countries didn't originally have some of these platforms, and now they do. And it's like, oh, wow, like I would have never imagined. But these are ways we can still stay connected. And it's interesting because, gosh, it would be surprising if we could find somebody that didn't have a social media platform, which will be my last question in just a moment. How do you feel about this statement? So I kind of rephrased it a little bit after a conversation with Sally last week. So it says, we have a great responsibility to use technology to bring the word of God to the limitless mission field that is social media. How do you feel about that statement? Want me to say it again?
That's so good. I think I got it. I'm chewing on it. To be honest, I think I feel convicted at the fact that I don't always recognize the weight of and the incredible, exciting opportunity that we have through social media. It's something I spent a lot of time on, especially for work in my personal life. And what would it look like to remember, because all facets of my life can be acts of worship to God.
Yeah.
This is not something that's off limits.
Right.
So
that's such a good point. Oh my goodness.
It makes me excited.
Well, think about that moment where you're like on YouVersion, maybe reading your Bible app or whatever, and then you have your moment with the Lord, and then you close it and you go onto a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever, and you feel like there's now a disconnect, but those are two different things. Those are two different buckets that you're pouring into. Well, what if one was pouring into the other, and what does that look like? And how would someone, if someone was, this is just coming to me as I'm saying it, scroll through your own social and just take a hard look. Do you think that somebody who's looking at your social media would believe that you were a believer of the Lord, that you were a Christ follower? And if your answer is no or indifferent, just maybe kind of just look at it. Do you feel like what you've put out there is something that the Lord would be proud of and something that brings him honor and points people back to him? And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying post a bunch of memory verses, or I'm not necessarily saying that, but there's a joy.
Yes.
There's a joy that comes from knowing the Lord.
Yes.
And there's not a judgment that comes from knowing the Lord. The Lord is our judge.
There's not fear.
Right. There's not a fear that comes in that. And so there's a vulnerability in it. I think sharing life on the vulnerable sense is fine, right? But I just think just take a little audit, a little check at yourself, and just see. You can also delete things too, that you've put in the past. Yeah. All right, final thought. And I just kind of hinted this a moment ago, and I asked Sally the same thing. If you had met somebody who never owned a social media in their life, they don't even know what it is at all. They've never experienced it. What would you tell them its purpose is, or what would you tell them about it? Someone's like, what is social media? I don't know what that is.
I love this question. I feel like it's one of those mind traps. But, okay, if I were to walk on to
Mars,
a deserted island, and there's one person there, and I'm opening up my phone. Yeah.
First of all, what's a phone? Yeah,
I know.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah. How much do we have to explain? I would say if they had a basic understanding of technology, I would tell them that it is, summarizing all social media, it's an opportunity to connect with people from all around the world, those who also have accounts on these platforms. And each platform is used a little differently. But there's often a combination of words and photos and videos that you can share, or that you can see being shared by others that you choose to follow. And it can be for entertainment purposes or educational purposes, or just to help stay connected with people you care about.
That's cool.
I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
They'd probably have so many follow-up questions.
Well, yeah. Again, they're probably living on a desert island. So
you're like, why didn't you bring me food and water? I literally don't care.
Yeah, exactly. But I think my main point in asking it, and I guess I would ask that to you too, listener, how would you respond? How would you answer that? Because I think ultimately my point in asking that is kind of the way we view it. It exposes the way we view social media. We're only sharing from our experiences. We're only sharing the things that we have experienced with the person. And so whatever that answer is likely the way you feel about it. And so, if you were being asked that question, I would just ask you, listener, how would you answer that? And then maybe record yourself saying that or write it down and really go, is this really what I am doing? You know, if it's a positive thing, is it really what I'm doing on social media? There's the things I need to change or the things I need to add. I think we have a great joy to be living in a time where we can connect in this way. And I'll quote Spider-Man, just like I did last week, with great power comes great responsibility. Power meaning that the Lord can utilize all that we do. I mean, he can also use, a red light, to change someone's life too. And you're sitting there in your car. We don't know. He's at work at all times. Yeah. But the action, our hands and feet, right? That Scripture talks about us being his hands and feet. There is a reason why we are hands and feet. That is an action on our end. Yes. To take, the word of the Lord through the corners of this world. And so thanks for sitting with me and chatting.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing thoughts on it and being an encouragement, and for sharing in a very intentional way on social. I know for me, just watching all the different accounts that you've had and just seeing your journey, it's been really cool to feel like we're a part of it with you as we've watched you kind of take steps and things from adulting with Ashley and to, seeing you graduate to seeing you now start a business has been really cool because we feel like we've been doing that with you. And it's a bit like a cheerleader on the side, just saying, keep going. So
you're so kind. Thank you for your insightful questions.
I'm
going to be chewing on them.
Well, guys, we want to hear from you too. So I don't know if this has meant something to you or if something we've said has had you questioning things or whatever. We'd love to hear from you. Of course, you can always leave comments right there in the video. You could share it. Start a conversation. Have a conversation with somebody. Have coffee. Talk about it. I don't know. Do face-to-face if you can. If you can't, we absolutely love you, and we're so glad that you're here. And that's about it. I guess we'll go and make it a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday. Does that sound good, Ash?
That sounds great.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you on Sunday. Have a good one.